I started working the night shift at a call center because it paid better and asked fewer questions. The company handled overflow for emergency and crisis hotlines. We weren't the main number people called. We were the place calls went when the primary lines were busy, understaffed, or closed for maintenance. Officially, we were there to listen and redirect. Unofficially, we were there to keep people calm until someone else took over. The building was old. Concrete floors, fluorescent lights that buzzed when they warmed up. No windows on the call floor. Just rows of desks, headsets, and low dividers that made every voice feel closer than it should. There were rules for the night shift. Don't give your full name. Don't promise help you can't provide. Don't stay on the line longer than necessary. And most important, log everything exactly as it happens. I worked from midnight to 6 a.m. Most nights were quiet, wrong numbers. Drunk callers. People who hung up as soon as they realized they'd reached a human. Then there were the real calls. People crying. People whispering. People breathing hard into the receiver, afraid to speak. You learn quickly not to absorb it. You listen, you respond, you redirect, you move on. If you don't, it stays with you. My first strange call came on a Tuesday. Just after 1:30 a.m., the system beeped. Incoming call. No caller ID. No location data. That wasn't unusual. Blocked numbers were common. What was unusual was the silence. I answered with the standard script. Thank you for calling. This line is recorded. How can I help you tonight? Nothing. I waited, listening to the faint hiss of the connection. Then someone breathed, not a sigh, not static. A slow inhale followed by a careful exhale, like the person was right next to the microphone. Hello? I said. A man's voice answered, quiet and steady. I think I missed it. Missed what? I asked. There was a pause. Not a dropped connection pause. A deliberate one. The moment, he said. When it mattered, I glanced at my screen. No address. No emergency tag. No history. Can you tell me your name? I asked. No, he said. That part is already gone. My training told me not to engage with vague statements like that. Redirect. Clarify. Keep it grounded. Are you in danger right now? I asked. Another pause. No, he said. That's the problem. I felt a chill, but I kept my voice calm. Can you tell me where you're calling from? I'm calling from where I stopped, he said. I typed exactly what he said into the log. Caller states he is where he stopped. Are you alone? I asked. Yes, he said. Now, the word now hung in the air longer than it should have. I asked a few more standard questions. He answered all of them politely, calmly, but never directly. When I tried to get specific location, time, names, he slid around them like they didn't apply. After a few minutes, he said, "Thank you for listening." Then the line went dead. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. The call duration read 0 o'clock. That was a glitch. It happened sometimes when the system failed to sync. I shrugged it off and moved on. The second call came 2 nights later. Same time range. Same silence at first. Same breathing. I answered. Thank you for calling. How can I help you tonight? I didn't think anyone would answer, the voice said. It was the same man. I was sure of it. You called before, I said before I could stop myself. He paused. Yes, he said. I wanted to see if you remembered. That set off every warning in my head. We don't retain personal caller information, I said, sticking to policy. I know, he replied. That's why I called you again. I logged every word. What can I help you with? I asked. I want to talk about the part after, he said. After what? After you hang up, he said. After the room goes quiet. My skin prickled. I forced myself to breathe normally. Are you feeling unsafe? I asked. No, he said. I already finished being afraid. The call dropped suddenly. Again, the duration showed 0 o'clock. I flagged it for a supervisor, but by morning it was buried under dozens of routine logs. Nobody followed up. On the third night, the call came at 2:17 a.m. exactly. This time when I answered, he spoke immediately. You're earlier tonight, he said. I froze. You called me, I said. Yes, he replied. But you were ready. I looked around the call floor. Other operators sat at their desks, lit by monitors, murmuring into headsets. Nobody seemed to notice anything unusual. "Why are you calling this line?" I asked. "Because it's the last one that answers," he said. "What do you mean?" "All the others stopped," he said. "Eventually," I swallowed. "Can you tell me what happened to you?" I asked. There was a long pause, long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Then he said, "I called too late." A cold understanding crept in. "Late for what?" I asked quietly. "For help," he said. "For stopping it." I felt my mouth go dry. "Are you saying you tried to call before?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "But no one picked up." I checked the timestamp on my screen. 2:17 a.m., the same minute. "Who did you call?" I asked. "You," he said. "Just not tonight." I logged the line with shaking hands. Caller states he has called before. Same operator, different time. The breathing on the line grew louder, closer. "You should tell them," he said. "Tell who?" I asked. "That the calls don't stop when the people do." The line went dead. I sat there long after, headset pressed to my ear, listening to nothing. When I finally looked down at the log entry, I noticed something I hadn't before. The system had filled in a location field on its own, not an address, a timestamp. Time of death. 2:17. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Then the system beeped again. "Incoming call. Same blank ID. Same silence." And before I could answer, the line connected itself. "I'm glad you stayed," the voice said. "I'm glad you stayed," the voice said. I didn't answer. My fingers hovered over the mute button, over the disconnect icon, over everything that could end the call. Training told me to stay calm, to ground the conversation, to ask direct questions. Instinct told me to hang up and walk away from the desk. I did neither. "Who are you?" I asked. There was no immediate response, just breathing. Slow, measured, like the person on the other end had all the time in the world. "I don't think that matters anymore," he said finally. I glanced at the call timer, 0 o'clock, still frozen. "That's not possible," I said quietly, more to myself than to him. "You're still thinking in minutes," he replied. "That takes practice to stop." My throat tightened. "Can you tell me your name?" I asked again. "No," he said gently. "That part is already logged." "What do you mean, logged?" I watched the text field on my screen. Without me touching the keyboard, a new line appeared beneath the previous entry. Caller status. Closed. I felt a rush of cold move through my arms. "Did you just see that?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "That's new for you." I pulled off my headset and looked around the call floor, expecting anyone to notice my reaction. Everyone else was working. One operator laughed quietly at something a caller said. Another rubbed her eyes and sipped coffee. The supervisor's office was dark. I put the headset back on. "You said the calls don't stop," I said. "What does that mean?" "It means the line stays open," he replied. "Even after the reason closes. That doesn't make sense." "No," he agreed. "It doesn't, but it still works." I leaned back in my chair, trying to put physical distance between myself and the voice. "Why are you calling me?" I asked. "Because you answer," he said. "And because you write things down?" I felt a jolt of unease. "How do you know that?" Another pause, longer this time. "Because that's how it continues," he said. I swallowed. "Continues how?" "Accurately." The word sat heavy in the air. "Listen," I said, lowering my voice. "If you're experiencing distress, I can transfer you to—" "No," he interrupted. Not sharply, calmly. "If you transfer me, the line goes quiet. And then it starts again somewhere else." I hesitated. "Starts what?" "The waiting," he said. I glanced at the timestamp again. 2:17 a.m. The number felt heavier now. Intentional. "You said you called too late," I said. "Late for what?" "For being heard," he replied. "Before the point where hearing no longer helps. Are you saying you're dead?" The words slipped out before I could stop it. There was a long silence. Then, softly, "I'm saying the call connected after it mattered." My chest tightened. "I need you to be clear," I said. "Are you alive right now?" "Yes," he said. Just not the way you're checking for. The line crackled faintly, not like static, but like something shifting. Why 217? I asked. That's when the room went quiet, he said. That's when the last voice stopped answering. I felt the hairs on my arms rise. Which room? The one you're sitting in, he replied. I looked around again, heart pounding. You're here? I whispered. No, he said. But this is where the line points now. The call dropped, not with a click. With a soft fade, like someone stepping out of range. I stared at the screen. The log entry had expanded. Call origin. Unavailable caller status. Closed. Time of death. 217 operator. My ID. My name. Or at least my employee number. That's not possible, I whispered. I flagged the call again. This time, I walked to the supervisor's office and knocked, even though the light was off. No answer. I checked the schedule. My supervisor wasn't in until 7 a.m. By the time my shift ended, the building felt wrong. Too quiet. Like the hum of electricity was just a little too low. I went home and slept with the lights on. The next night, I told myself it wouldn't happen again. It did. 2:17 a.m., same blank ID, same silence. Before I could say anything, he spoke. They're starting to show you the fields now, he said. What fields? I asked, exhausted and angry. The ones you don't fill in, he replied. I looked at my screen. New data fields had appeared beneath the call log, fields we didn't use, fields I'd never seen before. Time of cessation cause, unconfirmed last action, call attempt. You see it, he said. Yes, I said. I see it. Good, he replied. That means you're still aligned. Aligned with what? I asked. With the line, he said. With listening, I shook my head. This system doesn't track death. It does now, he replied. Why? I demanded. Because too many calls went unanswered, he said. Because silence accumulates. I rubbed my face with my hands. You're telling me this system is receiving calls from people who are... I stopped. Who are already gone? Yes, he said. And you expect me to believe that? I expect you to log it, he replied. The call timer flickered. 001-002. It was moving now. That's new, I said. You confirmed receipt, he replied. That starts the count. I felt sick. What happens when it reaches the end? I asked. The call resolves, he said. And what does that mean? Another pause. It means the line updates, he said. And someone else starts answering. I stared at the words on my screen. Operator status. Active. I don't want this, I said. No one does, he replied. But wanting isn't part of the process. Then what is? I asked. Staying, he said. The word hit me like a weight. I stayed, I said. You thanked me for that. Yes, he replied. Because most people don't. Why me? I asked. Because you don't hang up when things stop making sense, he said. You try to understand them. That's not a reason, I said. It's enough of one, he replied. The call continued like that for weeks. Not every night. But always at 2:17. Sometimes it was him. Sometimes it was someone else. Different voices. Same calm. Same pauses. They talked about moments they missed. Doors they didn't open. Calls they made too late. Every time, the system filled in more fields. Time of death caused location, not found. I started checking obituaries. The names never matched, but the times did. Always 2:17. I stopped sleeping. I stopped answering calls outside that minute. And still, the system routed them to me. One night, the call didn't come from outside. It came from inside the building. The headset beeped, and before I could answer, I heard my own voice. Tired. Flat. Recorded. Thank you for calling. This line is recorded. How can I help you tonight? I ripped the headset off and stood up, heart racing. The voice continued through the speakers at my desk. I think I missed it. My legs felt weak. The log filled itself in. Caller. Operator status. Pending time of death. A dash. Not filled. Not yet. The voice on the speakers paused, then said the words I had heard so many times before. I called too late. I backed away from the desk. The building lights dimmed slightly, not enough to trigger alarms, just enough to be noticed. My phone buzzed in my pocket. an internal message. System notice. Operator required. I realized then what the line was doing. It wasn't collecting calls. It was replacing listeners. And at 2:17, it was checking who was still there. I looked at the empty supervisor's office, at the dark call floor, at the rows of desks waiting for voices. The speaker crackled. "I'm glad you stayed," my own voice said again. And for the first time since this began, I understood something worse than fear. The line didn't care if you were alive. It only cared if you answered. I didn't quit that night. I told myself I would. I even stood up, took off the headset, and walked toward the exit. My badge worked on the first door, the second, the third. Each click felt normal, reassuring, like the building was letting me go. Then I reached the last door. The one that leads to the parking lot. The reader beeped red. Access denied. I tried again. Same result. Behind me, the call floor was silent. No ringing phones. No voices, just the low hum of the lights. My phone buzzed in my pocket. 2:17 a.m. system notice. Operator required. I stared at the door, then slowly turned around. Every workstation was lit now, screens glowing, headsets resting neatly on desks, as if the shift were about to start, not end. I walked back to my seat. The moment I sat down, the headset activated by itself. Incoming call. I didn't say anything. Neither did the caller. We listened to each other breathe. Finally, I spoke. If this line replaces listeners, what happens when no one answers? There was a pause, longer than usual. Then a different voice came through the headset. Older, tired, female. It reroutes, she said. To where? I asked. To the last open point, she replied. What does that mean? It means the line doesn't stop, she said. It compresses, I leaned forward. And the people calling? They finish, she said. Eventually. That's not an answer. It's the only one that fits, she replied. I closed my eyes. How do I end this? I asked. The voice softened. You don't. You stabilize it. By staying? I asked. Yes, she said. By listening. And if I don't? Another pause. Then the line looks for someone else, she said. Closer, my screen changed. A new status appeared next to my ID. Operator status. Primary routing priority. Fixed. I felt cold. You're telling me this is permanent, I said. No, she replied. Nothing here is permanent. Then what am I? I asked. There was a faint smile in her voice. A buffer. The call ended. The next one began immediately. Different voice. Same pattern. They talked about missed chances. About rooms that went quiet. About dialing numbers that rang too long. I logged everything. Minutes blurred into hours. Or maybe hours folded into minutes. Time stopped behaving like something I could track. At some point, I noticed something strange. The calls were changing. They weren't talking about fear anymore. They were asking questions. How long does it last? Do you hear others too? Does anyone ever answer back? I realized what was happening. They weren't calling for help. They were calling for confirmation. I checked the system dashboard. Call volume, stable error rate, 0% operator load, one just me. Days passed, or nights. The outside world became something I remembered, not something I touched. Food appeared in the break room, fresh coffee, clean cups. The building took care of what it needed to. I stopped checking the time. Then one night, the call came from a familiar voice. My own, recorded, flat, tired. I think I missed it. I didn't flinch this time. Why are you calling? I asked myself. To see if you'd answer, the voice said. And did I? I asked. Yes, it replied. That's how it stays quiet, I understood then. The line wasn't about death. It was about accumulation. Every unanswered moment, every silence where someone needed to hear another voice, it added up. The system didn't judge. It balanced. And balance required weight. I asked one last question. What happens when I stop? The voice paused. Then the line opens, it said, fully. And what does that look like? It looks like no one listening, it replied. I imagined that. A world where every call rang into nothing, where silence wasn't temporary. I didn't like the image. The next call came, then another. I answered them all. At some point, the system updated again. Operator status. Closed line status. Stable, the calls slowed, then stopped. The room felt lighter, like pressure had been released. I sat there, headset on, listening to the hum of electricity, wondering if that meant it was over. The lights dimmed slightly. A final message appeared on my screen. System notice. Thank you for staying. Below it, in smaller text. Next operator, not required. I took off the headset. For the first time in what felt like forever, nothing happened. I stood up. The exit doors opened easily this time. Outside, the sky was pale with early morning. Cars passed. People walked dogs. Normal sounds returned like they'd been waiting just out of range. I went home. I slept. When I woke up, my phone showed missed calls, messages. Time had moved forward without me. I never went back to that building. The company shut down months later. Officially, it was a budget issue. Too few calls. Not enough demand. Sometimes late at night I think about that. About what too few calls really means. Every now and then, at exactly 2:17 a.m., my phone vibrates. No number, no message. Just a notification that disappears if I unlock the screen. I don't answer. I don't need to. Because somewhere, in a room without windows, a line stays quiet. And as long as it does, the rest of us can sleep.